In Lesson 3.7, students analyze and interpret data from the bean planting experiment they did in a previous KIT lesson. Students will make qualitative observations and they will use quantitative data to describe which type of bean Jack most likely planted in the fairy tale. Lesson 3.7 uses the same bean seeds, plastic cups, soil, and those craft sticks that students used in their investigation from Lesson 3.4. Beyond these materials, there are going to be some hyperlinks to a pair of handouts for students, which can be found in the digital kit manual for this lesson. Students should also have access to classroom supplies, such as Unifix cubes or paper clips to use for measuring, and pencils and crayons for making simple graphs. Rulers could also be used for measuring in inches, but non-standard measurements using things like paper clips or Unifix cubes is a better idea that's better aligned to our Tennessee first grade math standards. To prepare for this video, I planted several seeds from each type of bean plant, and I gave them time to grow. When I brought the plants home over winter break, I discovered that my cat unfortunately likes to shred houseplants. So instead, here are some pictures that I took while the plants were still intact. Students have most likely had opportunities to observe their bean seeds growing into plants in the classroom. And probably these observations have been informal up until now. In today's lesson, the teacher guides students through the process of formally analyzing data, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So first, students analyze their small group's plant data qualitatively with the aid of a plant observation handout, which can be sliced in half and given to two separate students as sort of mini record sheets. Ideally, each student will receive 4 of these mini record sheets, so they can sketch and record each of their 4 types of bean plants. During this time, the students will illustrate the relative height of the plants, just sort of informally, as well as any physical features of those plants, such as the color, the number, the shape of the leaves, the thickness of the stem, the appearance of the roots if they're visible, etc. Students should also, in their sheets, label the basic parts of the plant. And this will conclude the qualitative data portion of the lesson. To help students gather the quantitative data, the teacher sets up stations around the room, where each station will display one type of bean plant. So there will be one pinto bean station with all the pinto beans in the classroom, and there'll be a lima bean station with all the lima bean plants, and so on. Small groups will be assigned to one station, and the teacher will model how to use either a ruler, if you want to use standard measurement, or the uniform objects like the Unifix cubes or the paper clips to measure from the top of the soil, which we want to help our students try to figure out. We're not going all the way to the bottom of the cup, but we kind of want to start where the soil breaks. And then we want to see how many paper clips tall is the plant. Students can find out the number of paper clips, and then the teacher can take that data and record it in a table by using a spreadsheet, which can be displayed on the smartboard for the class. To help this part of the lesson feel more engaging for students, there is also now a plant height record sheet, which has been created, so the students can also follow along and graph this data themselves. When using the quantitative data sheet, which is titled, "How much did my plants grow?" students could either record just the tallest sample in the classroom from each type of bean, or they could gather their small group's plants again and record each of their group's type of plant. to tell what each one of their group's plants, how tall each one grew, regardless of how it compares to the rest of the group's plants. You have some options here. The teacher in the lesson goes on to average the heights of all the plants from each small group, but this should be considered an optional extension piece because calculating averages goes beyond our Tennessee first grade math standards. Instead, it's recommended to have a whole class discussion with just the tallest sample of each type of plant. And by observing the height of each of the tallest samples of the pinto and the tallest lima bean, we can then make a visual comparison to determine which one of these bean types was most likely the one that Jack planted in the fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk. As with the previous lesson, the following lesson in this kit is going to require several additional days for the bean plants to grow. Essentially, we're going to do a part 2 of this qualitative and quantitative data collection, but we have to give the plants additional time so that we can get a difference in the plant's height from this lesson to the next lesson. So once again, this may be a good point to push pause in the kit's lessons for a few days and consider sprinkling in some other appropriate lessons from Mystery Science or the Science OER site as needed during this time.